in their writing. Just as the students have evaluated the text in their classroom, they're also examining their own writing. At this point, with their first rough draft of the essay, they're going to get a clean I can sheet. They're going to go through in their own writing and check off, where is the information about the Stamp Act? Have you shown the reaction to it? Coercive acts, have you shown the reaction to it? They're going to check to make sure that all of this information is included in their essay. When they're done with that, they're going to staple that to their first draft. They'll make copies for each of their team members, and each team member will then evaluate the essay. When the team members go to evaluate, they're going to look for two things: content as well as grammar and spelling. What I like about this for the students is they're constantly examining that content. So it goes back to our discussion earlier about historical discourse. They're now looking at it in their own work. So this isn't one of the things where their best friends put a happy face and say, nice job. Okay. So, is there a thesis statement? Generally at this point we're writing our thesis statement together, so all the thesis statements sound alike. But does it answer the question? Has the author written a paragraph with few spelling, punctuation, and grammar mistakes? And you'll notice this is the smallest part of the evaluation because the students are examining each other's historical thought. They go through and there are key words that each paragraph must have in it. The coercive acts, punishment, housing soldiers in the colonist homes, and they check off to make sure that the content language is also used in student writing. So that by the time the students have written, they've examined their pieces at least 2 or 3 times before they turn the final draft into me. I also use this as their grading essay, as their grading rubric. Just as we teach our students to evaluate their textbook, it's important to teach them how to evaluate a primary source. In this case, we're going to use a selection from the Declaration of Independence. The problem with using primary sources is that language and structure, again, pose huge problems for our students. This was written in a much different style than the students are used to reading today. So, for example, I'm going to take this last phrase here, and I'm going to do something that we call breaking down the text. And in this, we unpack the grammar and vocabulary of a sentence or a passage. So over here, among is my preposition. And in class, we're doing this together, although sometimes students do it on their own as well. Among these are life, liberty, and I always circle the and because I want the students to realize they have to deal with all 3 of these things. The pursuit of happiness. Okay. I will have talked to the students about the substitution in this phrase, the pursuit of happiness. That in Locke's original piece, it said property. And in this, I want to stress with the students that, again, this issue of slavery is coming up. That you couldn't talk about property because you were talking about enslaved Africans. And in order to get all of the 13 colonies to agree to this, there were, again, concessions made with language. I'm going to also talk to the students here. I'm going to use this word in particular, liberty. It's a social studies word, a history word, and they've got to know what that means. So we talk for a minute, and they'll probably come up with things like freedom. By taking this word liberty, by taking the word pursuit of happiness, students are giving their own interpretation to this. So, for example, liberty means freedom, linking it back again to freedoms that the colonists didn't have as a result of British anger. And this goes directly back, linking the same language to the focus question. As the students interpret the source, discuss it among themselves, question each other, they now have a piece of information that they can use in their essay. Once the students have completed their historical examination of their text and their other sources, they begin the same process with their writing. The first step they're going to do is synthesize the material that they know. So, for example, here, what do I know about the Stamp Act? Okay. Then they're going to interpret their information and evaluate it. In this column here, how did the colonists react? How did the British react? The final piece is to put it all together in what we call sentence starters. In 5th grade, we often begin these with what's called time markers. First, the Stamp Act was passed. Then, the colonists reacted by boycotting. Finally, the British responded by repealing the Stamp Act. And we would follow that process through for each, the Stamp Act, the Townshend Act, and the Coercive Acts. These sentence starters help your struggling students be able to formulate and organize their thoughts. Many of your stronger writers will just zip through this and have their own way of organizing it. But for kids that are really struggling with writing, this helps them get their writing, again, in an organized manner. We might use some of these words here as well. The blue colored words are our time words. Once the students have completed this, they move on to the next organizer that we use. And every student that leaves the class knows about the topic sentence, which is the student claim and the evidence they're going to use to support that. Again, a student who's struggling with writing may write this just exactly like this, with the claim, their answer, and the evidence just in that order. A student who's more experienced in writing may add other details to support that. But both of those essays will, what we do, get the job done. Okay, they'll answer the focus question. So they reference their I Can sheet. Again, this topic sentence here should have something to do with the Stamp Act, the Townshend Acts, or the Coercive Acts. This is the paragraph structure for each paragraph. Okay. Once the students have completed the organizer, then they put it into a paragraph form. And we begin the evaluation process, and that's all done by peer editing and review. So the students review each other's work, question it, again, the same way they've questioned their historical reading before. The students then rewrite and turn in their final essay. The one thing that I've learned in teaching 5th grade history is that it's absolutely essential to give students the time they need to examine and think about the reading that they're doing and the writing that they're doing. It's also absolutely key to allow students the time to talk, to question each other, to analyze each other's comments, but this is a totally kid experience. And in doing that, by allowing the time for the students to do that, you're going to get some exceptional student writing. And again, we also must show the students how to link this information with the focus question so that their reading, their discussion, their writing all links back to the task of answering the focus question.